So it's March of 1995, and a gay man takes a straight man on a national talk show to tell him that he has a crush on him. And that doesn't end too well. Let's get into it.
Now, which of these ways would you choose to reveal your secret crush on someone? A, would you write that person a letter? B, would you tell the person in private in case he rejects you? Or C, would you tell that person that you're gay and you hope he is on national television? Did you think Donna had the crush on you?
Did I? No, we're good friends.
Well, guess what? It's Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me.
Currently up here in Clarkston, Michigan, probably about an hour west of Detroit, to visit the final resting place of Scott Amedure. Scott Amedure was born January 26, 1963 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He grew up, went into the military, did his 4 years in the military, then got out, moved to Michigan, Lake Orion, Michigan. And Scott was a gay man. He worked in a gay bar as a bartender. Scott had an on and off again battle with drugs, and there was some abuse, domestic abuse charges against Scott with one of his partners at one point. Well, Scott is friends with a woman named Donna, and Donna lives in an apartment complex a few doors down from a guy 10 years younger than Scott, almost 10 years, named Jonathan Schmitz. And Scott kind of likes Jonathan, thinks he's cute. And they've hung out before, just, three mutual friends. Well, the Jenny Jones show, back in the 90s, all those talk shows, they were the big thing back in the day. And they were always trying to outdo each other. They were always trying to have a bigger audience and do more outrageous, things and have more outrageous topics and things like that. Scott Amedure was a talk show junkie. He loved his talk shows. He would watch them all the time. And he saw on the Jenny Jones show, they were asking for people to come on to reveal a same-sex crush.
If you have a secret crush on someone of the same sex and want to do it here on the show and reveal your crush, call us at the show.
So Scott gets a hold of Donna and says, hey, what do you think about going on the Jenny Jones show? And we'll take John on there and I'll reveal that I'm his crush. And she said, yeah, I'm down. So Scott calls the show and they talk to him and they call him back and say, hey, we'd like you to come on. So him and Donna are set to fly to Chicago. And then they call Jonathan and say, hey, this is the Jenny Jones show. You have a secret crush. Now this can be a man or a woman. And Jonathan Schmitz says, well, if it's a man, I'm not interested. I'm a straight guy. The Jenny Jones show led him to believe, according to him, that it was going to be a woman. They said, oh, you have nothing to worry about. You'll be okay. You have nothing to worry about. So John thinks it's his ex-girlfriend. And if it turned out to be her, he was actually going to propose to her on live television. But he did suspect Donna may be up to something. So he actually asked Donna and Scott, you guys by chance going to be in Chicago on this weekend? And of course they said no, because they didn't want to spoil the surprise. So they fly to Chicago, stay in separate hotels, and the day of filming is March 6th, 1995. Scott and Donna are on stage. Jonathan's in the back with headphones on. And Jenny Jones is talking to Scott and Donna. Scott's telling Jenny all about John and how he's got a crush on him and how he's got a tight little body and he's seen him under Donna's car fixing it one day. And Jenny Jones is kind of pushing him, telling him to, tell us some of your fantasies about John. So Scott goes on to mention other things, some of his fantasies about Jonathan, whipped cream and all this other stuff.
Tell us about that fantasy.
I got a pretty big hammock in my yard, and I thought about tying him up to my hammock.
And?
Well, it entails like whipped cream and champagne, stuff like that.
And then they call Jonathan out. So Jonathan comes out and he looks puzzled. He doesn't quite know what's going on. He gives Donna a hug, and then Scott puts out his hand to shake John's, and then he pulls him in for a very awkward hug. And you can see John kind of just gives him like his right side. He doesn't want to fully get into this hug because he's not sure what's going on. So the show continues. Jenny Jones reveals that Scott is indeed the crush that Jonathan has.
Did you think Donna had the crush on you?
Did I? No, we're good friends.
Well, guess what? It's Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me.
And Jonathan is very upset, but he acts like nothing's wrong. He says, "Oh, you lied to me." And he plays it off like nothing's wrong. But deep down, Jonathan's very, very embarrassed. He knows he's going to be on national TV. He comes from what I've heard and read, a family that really did not accept homosexuality. So he was afraid that if a gay man liked him, that his grandparents would think that he was also gay. So this right here would be Scott Amedure, Scott Bernard Amedure, who Jonathan Schmitz shot twice in the chest and killed on March 9th, 1995. And this right here would be his dad, Frank Amedure Sr. Now, Frank Jr., which was Scott's brother, was very vocal about the whole thing. He really was at court every day. He wanted Jonathan to get the death penalty, but he also believed that the Jenny Jones show was at fault equally. He believed that the Jenny Jones show misled John into thinking it was going to be a woman, and then it embarrassed him, and he ultimately took that embarrassment out on Scott and took his life. But rest in peace, Scott Amedure. January 26, 1963 to March 9th, 1995. And thank you for your service as well. So everything seemed to be fine and dandy after the show. Once they got home, they went drinking together. Had a good time that night. Then the day after the show, Jonathan crashes on a friend's couch, and he goes home the next morning to find a letter or like a note at his apartment, and it has like a flashing construction light with it, and it said something along the lines of, "If you need a special tool for the job, I have it," or something like that. But it wasn't signed, but he knew who it was from. And this right here would have been Tom's hardware store. This is where he would have purchased the ammunition. Right now we are in the trailer park where Scott Amedure lived. And he lived in number 27, which is coming up here. Right here. This is where Scott would have lived. It's not the same trailer. This one was put here in 2015, and I'm not sure what happened to Scott's actual trailer, but right here is where Scott lived in his trailer, and that's where he would have been shot and killed by Jonathan Schmitz. So after the Jenny Jones show, everything seemed to be okay. Jonathan Schmitz actually talked Donna and Scott into changing their airline ticket around so that they could all three fly home together to Detroit Metro. And then Jonathan would drive them home because he drove to the airport and left his car there. Everything seemed to be okay. They flew home together on the same plane, and then Jonathan gave Scott and Donna a ride home. And that night, they actually went out to a bar and drank together. Now, a friend of Scott's said that there was a sexual encounter between John and Scott that night. However, there was no proof of that. So that was just speculation. But yeah, this is the trailer park where Scott Amedure lived. Jonathan Schmitz actually would have came in right ahead of us here, and he would have came our way. He would have went all the way to the back, and he knocked on the door and asked if he wrote the love note, and Frank nodded and smiled. And at that point, Jonathan said, well, I left my car running. I'll be right back. So he went out to his car, turned it off, grabbed the shotgun, went back up, knocked on the door. And once Scott opened the door again, Jonathan put the gun, pointed the gun at him, and Scott grabbed a chair and said, Gary, he's got a gun. Help. No later than he said that, John pulled the trigger once. Scott went back and held his chest, and then he pulled the trigger again. He shot him twice in the chest, killing him. So now we're at the apartment complex where Jonathan Schmitz and Donna Riley lived back when all this happened. Back here at the Manitou Lake Apartments. So this is C2 right here. This is the apartment that Jonathan Schmitz lived in when Scott Amedure left the note on his door along with that reflector. Right here, C2. This was Jonathan's apartment. Then his friend Donna Riley lived right there in C12. Right there.
Ma'am, I just had to get your shot of man.
Okay, calm down, okay? Okay, why did you do that?
So after murdering Scott Amedure, Jonathan Schmitz would have pulled up to this gas station right here in Auburn Hills, Michigan. This was an Amoco station at that time. Now it's a BP. But he would have pulled in to this gas station right here. There used to be two payphones here, one in the middle of your screen and then one over here where these two barriers are. And he parked in front of this middle one right here. You can actually see the wires still sticking out of the ground from where the payphone was. So that's where the payphone was, where Jonathan Schmitz called 911 and told the 911 operator that he just murdered a man. And he murdered him because he took him on national television and embarrassed him. So after his arrest, Jonathan Schmitz was charged with second-degree murder, and his attorney thought that he had been a manic depressant and had Graves' disease, and also said that what caused him to commit this crime was the gay panic defense, which the jury did not buy. But he was found guilty of second-degree murder in 1996, and he was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison. But his conviction was eventually overturned on an appeal.
It is the sentence of the court on the murder, second degree, 25 to 50 years. On the felony firearm, 2 years. Those sentences are to be served consecutive.
And after retrial, he was found guilty of the same charge, and his same sentence was again reinstated, 25 to 50 years. So after serving, I believe, 22 years or so, Jonathan Schmitz was released from prison on August 22nd of 2017 after being granted parole.
Don't forget, the Amedure family is suing her for $25 million, and they're blaming her. They're saying, Scott Amedure's mother has said it over and over again, Jenny Jones put the gun in John's hand and she pushed him over the edge.
The Jenny Jones show ambushed this defendant with humiliation.
You used him as a source of entertainment, having no idea what his emotions would be for other people, didn't you?
No, that's not the way I see it. I don't use people on the show.